Here. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Beth Eddings. I'm the Assistant Director of the Medical Alumni Association, and I'm thankful to have you all here for today's virtual session with the Reynolds Finley Historical Collections and learning a little bit about Lister Hill Library and what all they have to offer. Just some notes of housekeeping. Make sure that you're muted during the presentation. We will do Q&A towards the end, and during that time, you can feel free to unmute yourselves and ask questions. I will be monitoring the chat feature of Zoom, so if you need to submit a question during the presentation, you're more than welcome to do so, and we'll make sure it gets asked and answered. And then lastly, if you are learning with us today and you need to lunch, please feel free to do that. We want to be respectful of your lunch hour and the time that you've taken to be with us. We could not offer programming like this without the support of our annual dues paying members. So if you're a member, thank you so much for your support. Today's session will be a little different than the ones we did in the fall, as we will not be offering CME for this session. It's just an informational kind of learning hour with Anna Kaetz. Anna is a digital strategy and metadata librarian at the Reynolds Finley Historical Library, and we are thrilled to have her today as she shares with us an update on the historical collections and what it offers. Welcome, Anna.
Hi, thanks so much, Beth. I'm going to go on and share my screen. I have a few slides for y'all today, so I'm just going to go on and jump right in for time's sake. So can everyone see my PowerPoint all right? Awesome. Thanks so much. And first of all, I just want to say thank you again to Beth and Meredith and to the Medical Alumni Association for giving me the opportunity to talk just a little bit about the UAB Library's historical collections, kind of some of our highlights, what we're doing, how we're trying to connect with alumni, with the community. And so I just really appreciate having the opportunity to share a little bit with y'all today. So just kind of with some of the things that we have going on in mind, I decided to go on and just name the talk, the UAB Library's Historical Collections, Highlight Services, and Community Engagement. So we're just going to go on and jump right on in. No, it's not. Okay. Can you see the next slide now? Awesome. Okay, so again, as Beth mentioned, I'm Anna Kaetz. I'm the digital strategy and metadata librarian for the Reynolds Finley Historical Library. Essentially, what that means is that I work with our curator to kind of give us a online digital presence, whether that's coordinating digitization efforts, working on virtual exhibits, things like that, just to kind of help with our promotional efforts and to provide access for people who are on campus, who are not on campus, who don't live in the area. So that is a lot of what I work on. And I did just want to mention that, the resources I'll be talking about today are all historical in nature. So I did want to provide you the content for our head of reference for Lister Hill Library. If you have any inquiries about current medical research, literature, what's available, you can contact her. There is her email, there is her phone number. You can definitely reach out to her and she can provide more information on that. So, but today we'll mainly be talking about historical content and things surrounding that we provide. So just a few of the things I'm going to cover today. So I'm going to talk briefly about the historical collections and what it actually is. And then I'm going to just jump right into some of the facilities updates that we have. So we have a new historical collections gallery I'll talk a bit about. I'll mention some of the library digital resources that we have available to the public and to alumni. I'll talk a bit about some of the virtual exhibits that we've done for remote users, a newly relaunched lecture series that we're working on, and then just some of the ways that we invite people in the community, alumni, to get involved, to work with us to achieve these efforts. So first, if you're not familiar, a lot of you might be familiar, but in case you aren't, I just wanted to do a quick breakdown. So the UAB Library's historical collections is compiled of 3 units. We are located on the third floor of Lister Hill Library, and the 3 units are the Reynolds Finley Historical Library, where I work, the Alabama Museum of the Health Sciences, and the UAB Archives. And so I'm going to briefly mention some highlights from each of the sections. We could spend a full hour just talking about all that goes on in the historical collections areas. But for time's sake, I'm just going to do a brief overview of each unit. So first, we have the Reynolds Finley Historical Library. The Reynolds Historical Library, as it was referred to as, was established with a donation of about 5,000 rare books and manuscripts that were related to the history of the health sciences. So this was donated to UAB in 1958 by Dr. Lawrence Reynolds. He was a native to Alabama, and he was a well-known radiologist that practiced in Detroit for years. And when he retired, he came back to Alabama and wanted to donate his materials locally. So he donated those to UAB, making up the Reynolds Historical Library. And then in 2014, the Reynolds Historical Library became known as the Reynolds Finley Historical Library when the family of UAB alum Dr. Wayne H. Finley, his family gifted an endowment for the continued enhancement and expansion of the medical historical collections that we are today. So the original donation was about 5,000 materials. Today, the Reynolds Library holds over 23,000 items. And so just a couple of highlights within that, we have 7 medieval and Renaissance manuscripts that date all the way back to the mid 14th century. We have 31 incunabula. In case you're unfamiliar with that term, essentially that is just any items that were printed in the first 50 years of printing. So that would be roughly between about 1450 and 1500. So we have 31 items that were published during that time. We have a really great Civil War medicine collection. We have a neurosurgery collection, an otolaryngology collection. We have all kinds of materials. And again, for time's sake, I can't go much more in depth into that, but that gives just a general overview. But I definitely, if you've never visited the historical collections area, I definitely encourage you to do so. We have a lot of great stuff. So please get in touch with us and we can schedule a visit for you to learn more about what all that we have on the third floor. So next I'll talk, about the UAB archive. So it is the official archival repository for UAB and the storehouse for the institutional memory, and the predecessor entities of the university. So the archives has over 500 collections of university records and manuscripts, and it has over 150,000 photographic images. So it has a very expansive collection. Its oldest document is a 1797 letter from colonial physician that most of us are probably familiar with, Benjamin Rush. So he was a signer of the Declaration of Independence. And then the oldest image is of, I'm probably going to butcher this, but a daguerreotype from the mid 1840s. All the medical people, you'll know the exact pronunciation. I do more with the technology, so pronunciation in the medical terminology is not my strong suit, but we do what we can. And then, just to mention some of the 3-dimensional items that the UAB Archives has, they have a lot of material regarding the history of the city of Birmingham, obviously the history of the university. They have several university mascot uniforms, which is really fun. Beauregard T. Rooster is one of my personal favorite items that they have. So he gets brought out on occasion and makes visits with some of the classes we get. And then an ashtray that was used in the historic AG Gaston Motel. So again, just a few brief highlights. The archives is a great repository and has a lot of really interesting, rare, and historical imagery. And then we have the Alabama Museum of the Health Sciences. I'll refer to it as simply AMHS. So that is the museum that collections are housed on the third floor of Lister Hill Library. So AMHS tries to connect with the community through a lot of different ways, but specifically through the stewardship of health sciences objects, histories with educational opportunities. They provide, along with the rest of historical collections, engaging exhibitions. And then again, the 3 units, we all are very thoughtful in our collecting and in how we're trying to continue to build the collections. So the collection in AMHS currently houses about 15,804 items. So they've grown pretty exponentially over the years as well. They have a lot of students that use their collection for research, as a class tours. We do, as a collective, get a lot of class visits, a lot of researchers. We offer a fellowship. So we try and really invite users, or visitors to come and view our collections and use them as much as possible. And just to kind of give you an example of how expansive our reach is in terms of discipline and subject. In the fall semester of 2024 alone, the museum had 29 different groups and classes with 503 visitors that visited the museum collection and what I'll talk to about in a minute, the Pappas Gallery. And they came from 11 different departments across campus, including, as we all know, the Heersink School of Medicine, School of Public Health, Health Professions, anthropology, criminal justice, and more. So, we were heavily health sciences related, but our reach really spans across all disciplines of campus. We like to think in our collections we have something for everyone, and certainly classes, faculty, researchers, they heavily utilize these collections. So that is just kind of a brief overview of historical collections, just to kind of make you more familiar with it, give you an idea of how those 3 units are organized. We largely work together, again, to create exhibits, to support research across campus, and then general promotion of medical history. And with that, so we've been doing exhibits for years. And so the library administration wanted to provide a state-of-the-art exhibition space that would showcase all the rare materials on a large scale that the UAB Library's Historical Collections has to offer. And with that, use interactive technologies to highlight these collections and to support user engagement and interactability with the exhibits. So with that, in just as kind of a facilities update and a pretty big one, an exciting one. In the fall of 2024, we had the pleasure of opening the Dennis G. Pappas Historical Collections Gallery. It is a 3,000 square foot exhibition space that again allows us on a large scale to highlight materials that we have and then engage and feature some of the technologies we're using as well. So the first exhibit, and it's currently up, the first exhibit will be up through June of 2024. No, we're in 2025, June of 2025. That's the first time I've actually said that this year, so that's still odd. So it will be up through June this summer. So if you have not been able to see it, I would definitely encourage you to go. The gallery is located just under us on the second floor of Lister Hill Library, and it is free and open to the public. So the first exhibit is called Navigating Communication, Breaking Invisible Barriers. So this exhibit explores the vision and hearing loss of the deaf, deafblind, and blind communities, and features a lot of rare materials that we have related to these topics in the historical collections. And for those of you who haven't visited the space, I definitely encourage you to, but I wanted to include a few images to show you what it actually looks like. So here's just some images of the space. You walk in, you can see there's some display cases. It has some screens and some technology dispersed throughout it. At the top, that's right when you walk in. If you turn to the left, that's going to be what you're seeing in that bottom left image. And then if you turn to the right, you'll be seeing that as well. So I just kind of wanted to give you an overview of what the space, like how it actually turned out. We're very pleased with it. It looks very sleek, very modern and innovative, and we've already had a lot of interest. So we're very excited to be able to offer that. And again, that's free and open to the public. The hours for that are Tuesday through Saturday, noon to 5 p.m. So we definitely encourage you to come by, check it out. You can do a self-guided tour. We can provide you with a tour. We're just very excited to offer on a much larger scale what we've been doing. So I wanted to show you, we've got some great items on display. Here you've got a low vision headset. Here's someone at one of our openings that was looking through it, seeing kind of what we got there. Here we have a eye operating set from the museum. I'm sure some of you have probably used some of these things, or at least are very familiar with those things. So that's a really interesting artifact that's on display. With that, we also have a rare book that showcases some early cosmetic surgeries around the eyes. So that's some really interesting subjects that we discuss in the exhibit. Again, we've got a headset here for people with audio impairments. And then just some visitor imagery that people have really seemed drawn in and very excited to become more involved in what we're doing and to visit our space. So I definitely encourage you to do that. As I'd mentioned, we have a lot of interactive technologies that kind of enhance the user experience. So here you can see we've got a large touch screen. We've actually got 4 of these in the gallery. There's one on each side. So we've got a lot of interactability on these screens. You can see we've got a caption that kind of gives context to the items on display. We also have multiple pages that talk about the history of what of the exhibit topics we're talking about here. We've got one on the Alabama Institute for Deaf and Blind. And you can kind of go through each page and just learn a little more. So that's kind of an additional interactive element that we offer. Another is there's a virtual exhibit that we have available to view on our website and in the gallery. It's called Narrations of ENT, the Dennis G. Pappas History of Otolaryngology exhibit. So in the image here, you can see that is what the homepage looks like. And then on the side, you can see different topics. You have an anatomist servant becomes his rival, Duvernay versus Valsalva, hearing aid origin. So we've got a lot of different topics that are discussed that are related to the general gallery exhibit. And then I've zoomed in on a page on the bottom here. You can see a video, you can look at digitized images or photographs of related artifacts. So it's a really interesting exhibit. The most interesting thing I think about it is it was actually originally done as we have it now in the gallery. We do have a physical exhibit upstairs, but we have the virtual exhibit. It was done during COVID over a Zoom interview. Essentially, our team met with Birmingham ENT and longtime historical collections donor, Dr. Dennis G. Pappas. And in this interview, he explored the history of otolaryngology through the many books and instruments that he's donated to the Reynolds Finley Historical Library and the Alabama Museum of the Health Sciences. It's a great exhibit, and one, I think it speaks a lot to kind of the innovation of our team, that even when we were shut down and people couldn't come to the library, we were still trying to create content to promote the history of the health sciences. So that was a really cool exhibit that kind of formulated during COVID. And then also it's just a good example of ways that the medical community engages with our collections and gets involved. So this is one we worked with a longtime donor on. And so that kind of just shows ways we really like to be involved with donors, alumni, people in our surrounding community. So I just think that's a really great example of some of the collaborations that are available. And then again, I'm going to kind of skip through some of these for time's sake, but we have some Helen Keller tapes that we offer. There's one where she gives a speech to the Library of Congress in 1952. I would encourage, if you come visit the exhibit, definitely look at that. It's very impactful. We have the video up, and then we also have handwritten transcripts for anyone with hearing impairment. So we've really tried to consider different accessibility needs so that it can be enjoyed by everyone in the surrounding community. We also have a virtual reality experience called Notes on Blindness. So essentially, this experience tracks the journey of a writer and theologian, Dr. John Hull, as he goes through the process of becoming blind and losing his eyesight. So essentially, he took a cassette tape as he was losing his eyesight and documented what that experience was like and how difficult it was and how his perspectives changed as he lost his visual sight. And so the simulation is essentially you put on the headset. Here you can see this is probably my favorite photograph that exists. It is a Greek Orthodox priest using our VR headset. I just think that's great. We were really excited to get this photo. He really enjoyed it, but there really is something for everyone, and everyone's really found it very impactful. But so you put the headset on and you can kind of see through the eyes of someone with a visual impairment. You hear the cassette recordings as you're going through it, and it's very impactful because again, it shows a different perspective that someone with eyesight might not be aware of. We had one visitor who came and her boyfriend had actually just lost his sight. So she found it really impactful to be able to put that on and kind of experience some of the things he might be experiencing, that she could be more empathetic in his situation. So that's been a really impactful one that we've really been glad we included in the exhibit. So I definitely encourage you to look at that when you come. And again, those are just like a few highlights in the gallery. We have a lot of stuff, a lot of work went into it, a lot of love, from not just our team, but from UAB in general for their support, from our donors, from our library administrators. So I definitely encourage you to go visit the space. Again, it's open Tuesday through Saturday, noon to 5 p.m. And I can put that in the chat after the talk as well, just so you have it. And it is free and open to the public. So definitely come check that out. So that's just a facility update. I kind of want to move more now into what are some of the actual library resources that we have available for users who they might not be in classes, they might not be coming for tours or visits, they may not be on campus all the time. So UAB Libraries has a really good repository of resources available. So I kind of wanted to show you. So if you go to the UAB Libraries website, it's library.uab.edu. This will pull up the homepage. So essentially, if you don't want to put in the link, you can just Google UAB Libraries, and the first thing that comes up, just click on that and it will bring you to this page. There's a lot of things you can do on here. You can search our catalog. You can look up any of our research guides. You can find contact information, hours, things like that. But here I've shown, if you go over to our special collections tab, you can learn a lot about our historical collections in general, the gallery, our different units. And then at the bottom, I've circled in red, you can visit UAB digital collections. And so that's kind of where we're going to spend a few minutes. And so this is what the digital collections page looks like. I've also included a link to that as well. And I'm happy to share my slides if anyone's interested, just to make it a little easier to access these resources. So this is what the homepage will look like. So as you can see, you'll see the name of the collection. Then there'll be a bit of an abstract showing where the materials are from, what the collection includes, and what the subject is of the collection. So, we don't have time to go through all of these, but there's a good variety of materials that I would definitely encourage you to spend some time looking through. I wanted to highlight just a few that might be of particular interest to this group. So one is our transactions of the Southern Surgical Association. As we all know, the Southern Surgical Association has a strong local history. As it was founded in Birmingham, Alabama. So UAB Libraries is the official repository of the association. Excuse me. And so the Reynolds Finley Library houses all of the physical copies of the transactions. But we also did several years ago a very large digitization effort where volumes 1 beginning in 1888 at the first session, all the way through 108, which was the year 1996, have been digitized and are available through the UAB Library's website. So I've included the link here, but also if you just go to the homepage and go to digital collections, it's all in alphabetical order, so you can scroll down and view that. But right there, that is 108 digitized journals that we have available that you can look through, spend some time really getting into. So I definitely encourage you to do that. And then, of course, if you have an interest in seeing the physical copies, if you want to set up an appointment with us, we'd be happy to pull those for you as well. But that's just one example of some of the digital collections that we have available. Anyone who has spent any time in the history of medicine knows who Sir William Osler is, a very well-known physician. Um, so we have an entire William Osler letters collection. So the Reynolds Finley Library houses 60 letters that were written by well-known physician William Osler, as we all know, to one of his very close friends, Ned Milburn. So there's some really interesting letters. All of them are digitized with transcripts in case anyone's like me and you have a hard time reading handwriting. So those are available, and it's a really interesting collection. It's got a wide date range. So it includes content from his early days in school. They go through his medical career and into his later life. So the date range is 1865 to 1919. So it covers a large chunk of time, and it does deal with specific medical topics. So it includes tuberculosis, which we all know William Osler's son died of tuberculosis. So he spends a lot of time talking about that. And then, of course, it details an important friendship that, of course, impacted William Osler and his contributions to the field of medicine. So all of those are digitized, available online. I can share the hyperlink with you, but again, that you can just find that on the digital collections homepage. And then just to kind of show you, we have a lot on medical history, but we also have like just a wide variety of collections in general. So we have a Marcel Proust collection. The UAB archives they house 21 letters written by the famous French novelist Marcel Proust. All of these letters are digitized along with some manuscript material that are material works that are digitized and available through the website. The first 15 letters were acquired by the archives in 1990 or 1988. And then very recently in 2023, we were able to acquire 6 additional letters as well. So now we have 21 items that are all digitized and available for view. So that is a really cool collection. I'd encourage you to look through that. It's very visual. And just an example of kind of the depth of our digital collections. We, again, like to think we have something for everyone. There is a lot to unpack. So I definitely suggest you just spend some time seeing what all we have. And the last specific one I want to mention was the Lawrence Reynolds World War I photograph collection. So, of course, we have a strong connection to Lawrence Reynolds as he donated the original materials that made up Reynolds Finley Library. But all of us have some materials from him. So the UAB Archives houses this collection of World War I photographs that were taken of Dr. Reynolds during his time in a hospital in Paris. So that is also a very visual collection. I spent some time looking through that and kind of got lost just out of interest. So I definitely encourage you to look at that. It's got a lot of different things, including photos of the hospital staff in the American Military Hospital #1 in Paris. It shows patients. It shows an annex in the Villa of Joilly. It has architecture and then some really impactful imagery of the front lines and what that looked like for soldiers in the trenches. So again, another very visual collection that I'd encourage you to look through. So now I'm going to shift a little bit. In addition to our digitized resources, we also have virtual exhibits. So I know we've talked a little bit about we do a lot of physical exhibits, but for both preservation and for anyone who can't make it to campus, we like to offer virtual exhibits whenever possible. So again, here is how you get to those. I'll show you a couple of different ways. If you go to the library's website, just libraries.uab.edu, that'll put you at the homepage again. Go back to the Special Collections tab and just click on the Reynolds Finley Historical Library tab. You see that in the top right. That then at the bottom left, that will pull up the Reynolds Finley Historical Library website homepage. And on the left sidebar, we have a specific tab titled Virtual Exhibit. So if you click on that, that will bring up all of our virtual exhibits that we have available in this area. And I'll just highlight a couple for time's sake. For this group, it might be of interest to you that we have a Florence Nightingale virtual exhibit. So the Reynolds Finley Library houses 58 letters that were written by Florence Nightingale, spanning from 1853 to 1893. The exhibit features letters that discuss such topics as sanitation in India, some of the war relief efforts and charitable work she did during the Franco-Prussian and Austro-Hungarian War. And then her time during the Crimea War at the Scutari Hospital. So that's some of the more well-known things that she did. So these letters track that. Again, if you have a hard time reading handwriting, we do have transcripts available. So this exhibit contextualizes and features those digitized letters that we have available. And you can click on this hyperlink and that will take you to that exhibit. And then I just wanted to show you another place where you can find virtual exhibits is, again, if you go to the library's homepage, instead of clicking under the Special Collections tab, the Reynolds Finley Library, go to the Alabama Museum of the Health Sciences, which is highlighted in red. And then on the bottom left, you'll see that is the Alabama Museum of the Health Sciences homepage. And on the top bar, you'll see, again, highlighted in red, there's a virtual exhibits page that you can go to. And those are the two places under the Reynolds Finley website and the Alabama Museum of the Health Sciences website where you can find a good bit of virtual exhibit material. Again, another one just to mention, this is a good one because it kind of encompasses treasures from all of our historical collections, all 3 units. So some items of note up here in the left corner, you can see in the museum, they house some anatomical mannequins that were created between the 16th and 18th century. These are housed in the museum. Down below, you might see some familiar things in the archives, and they have a lot on early medical construction in Birmingham, how that's changed over the years, how the campus has grown. So our alumni always get a kick out of that because they're seeing in real time some of the changes that have happened over the years. And as we all know, construction is still constantly going on. So it's great to be able to revisit how the city used to look and how campus has differed over the years. And so you can go to the hyperlink I've included here to look at those things. So again, just kind of an overview. We do have an approximate 20 virtual exhibits, so there is a lot to unpack there, a lot of content available. And again, these exhibits, we really prioritize them because not only does it provide important historical and contextual information of the materials we house, but it preserves a lot of the exhibition work that we're doing and allows remote users to be able to access them time and time again. And so again, I've included the links below. Both of these links will take you to different places where we have virtual exhibits available. So now briefly, I know we're kind of, for time's sake, we're running out of time. I'm just going to talk about our newly relaunched historical collections lecture series. So we've got kind of 2 different, it's all part of the same series, but they are kind of 2 different lecture series. So we're all familiar with the annual Reynolds Finley Historical Lecture, which is like a major event that opens the Medical Alumni Weekend every year. It started in 1980 and it's continued to present. And then we also have in the 1990s all the way to 2016, we would also have kind of more of like a mini series of Reynolds Finley lectures that we would do over lunch. People could come to the library and we, on a first come, first served basis, they could get lunch, come listen to a lecture on the history of medicine. And so that had ceased in 2016 due to some administrative changes, but that was relaunched in October of 2024. So we're excited to promote that again. And of course, the objective of the series is to bring in lecturers who can discuss various historical aspects that pertain to the history of the health sciences. So each lecture we do offer a CME credit. So I want to mention that if anyone's interested in coming, having lunch, getting some credit towards their CMEs. And again, the lectures are free and open to the public, and definitely get here. They're generally from noon to 1, and get here on time because the lunches are first come, first serve. So, but I just wanted to let you know that's exciting. We're excited to relaunch that. You can find, if you go to our digital collections homepage, a lot of our previous lectures are also available online. So you can just go to the Reynolds Finley Historical Lecture Series, and that will pull up kind of the mini lecture series. It'll also pull up a lot of our annual lectures. So I definitely encourage you to look back and view some of those. And then I just wanted to mention the two we had in October. We had one given by Dr. Ariel Silverman. She's the Director of Research for the American Foundation for the Blind. And in congruence with the first exhibit we put together, she shared learning from lived experience, how to champion inclusion for people who are blind or have low vision. So that was a great lecture that jump started that lecture series. And then a couple of weeks later, on November 7th, Dr. Scott Jackson, who's a practicing dermatologist in Bentonville, Arkansas, he gave a lecture on Planck's Doctrina de Morbis Cutaneous, Foundation of a Specialty. And with that lecture in mind, the Reynolds Finley Library was able to acquire a German edition of the Planck book that he featured. So there was a strong connection with that as well. And so upcoming, I just wanted to mention we've got 2 lectures in the spring that we're offering. So on February 5th, on the 4th floor of Lister Hill Library, we're offering Knocking at the Door, The Life and Legacy of Dr. James Montgomery. This will given by Professor Haley Wells. She is a recent graduate from UAB and a historian of African American and Birmingham civil rights history. And so we're really excited about that lecture. You can follow this hyperlink for more information on the time, the location, and the topic and the speaker herself. But I just wanted to kind of put that in your purview. So that is February 5th at noon on the 4th floor of Lister Hill Library. And then in March, on March 27th, 2025, again, on the 4th floor of Lister Hill Library, we'll have Dr. House and Dr. Rose from Auburn University, and they will be co-presenting on engineering history, developing an experimental approach to recovering the lived experience of a 16th century amputee. And so that's going to be an interesting cross section. You've got Dr. House, who is a associate professor of history at Auburn University, and then Chad Rose, who is an assistant professor in mechanical engineering at Auburn. So that'll be an interesting interdisciplinary discussion that kind of bridges a gap between medicine and technology and engineering. So I definitely encourage you to come see that talk. Again, that's March 27th, 2025 at noon on the 4th floor of Lister Hill Library, and I've included the link for you to learn more about that as well. And then, of course, we all know our annual historical lectures come up. This year, I did want to mention, usually it's held in Volker Hall, but we are moving it this year to the Hill Student Center off of University Boulevard. It will be in the Alumni Theater. And of course, this is in conjunction with Medical Alumni Weekend, as usual. And so that will be at 4 o'clock on February 28, 2025. Dr. Ruben Pillay is the executive director of the Heersink Institute for Biomedical Innovation and the chief innovation officer at the University of Alabama at Birmingham Health System. And he will be presenting a very current topic that I'm sure all of us have heard something about and are very familiar with, that is very much a trend right now. He'll be discussing AI in medicine, menace or miracle. So again, that'll be February 28th at 4 p.m. in the Hill Student Center. And then as usual, there will be a reception to follow. And then if you'll go to that hyperlink at the bottom, there will be a Zoom option available as well for anyone who can't make it. And you can access that from that page. And then I briefly again want to mention, clearly we have a lot going on, and we always love to mention just ways that our community, our alumni can get involved. So I've just got a couple of things here I'll mention. I couldn't have said it better than our administrators. So our dean of libraries says your generous support offers the mission of historical collections at the libraries One, to preserve and showcase the history of UAB, the health sciences in our communities through curated materials that foster inquiry and inspire innovation. And the membership really keeps this wealth of knowledge alive. So I think she does a good job of expressing how important it is to further this mission, what we're trying to accomplish, and how vital our donors, our patrons, people who want to be involved, our supporters are. And then our assistant dean for historical collections, Jason Bird, says there's never been a more exciting time to support historical collections as we continue this era of growth in both our team, our collections, and our spaces. So he personally invites all of you to be a part of the progress by joining the Reynolds Finley Associate, which is a good segue into the next slide, becoming a Reynolds Finley Associate. So essentially, historical collection supporters can join the associates group through this brochure that you can find online, or just going to this link right here. So essentially, the associates help sponsor research fellowships, the lecture series that we talked about, community outreach, exhibits, and the development of unit-related publications. And it's just a great way for the UAB and local community to get involved. So I definitely encourage you to consider becoming a Reynolds Finley Associate. This also, the associates publish a 3 times a year publication, the Treasurer's Departmental Newsletter. You can also sign up for that, whether you want to be an associate or not. It's a great resource as it provides updates and collection highlights from the historical collections team. Here you can see there's an article that welcomes some of the new staff we've gotten in the last year. So it keeps you up to date with what we have going on. And then it also promotes new exhibitions we have going on, events that are available to the public. So it's a really great resource. So I definitely encourage you to sign up for that. If you're interested in signing up, you can contact me at akates95@uab.edu or Jason Bird, our assistant dean, at jbbird@uab.edu. So that's something that is free and available and just keeps you up to date with everything we have going on. So I definitely encourage you to sign up for that. And then there's some naming opportunities you've seen with our gallery space. It is open and available to the public, but there's more work to be done. So we have a naming wall, a donor wall that if you have any interest in supporting us monetarily, you can get in touch with our Senior Director of Development, Lisa Bristow, at lisabristow@uab.edu. And then we are also in the works is a project to create a new lecture space that will host the Reynolds Finley lecture series. That would give us one concrete space that everyone could come to and hear the lectures. So have that in the works now, and you can. There's a Give Now page, and I believe I've hyperlinked this button. If not, let me know, and I can provide the link to you as well. But yeah, so those are just a few of the opportunities. And again, I just want to thank everyone. I mean, we could not do what we do without your support, without your interest, without your love of the history of medicine. So again, we always just want to take time to thank the UAB community, our donors, our alumni for everything that you do. So with that, I'll open up to questions. And of course, feel free to email me with any questions or comments you have at akates95@uab.edu for additional information.
Okay, I'm going to give a chance for anybody to unmute and ask a question. And that doesn't happen. I've got a couple that were submitted via the chat box.
Right.
Just a couple seconds. Okay. When you're considering what to put on exhibit, what all goes into that decision-making process?
Yeah, it's a great question. So it really is a community effort. So, one thing, of course, we look at what is something we can support material wise from each unit. So we always like to choose something that we can actually promote by showing materials. So that's the first thing is like, what do we have? What could we support? We also kind of look at like current topics of interest. Right now we're working on a new exhibit for the gallery for next year. There's been a lot of interest in the new Proust letters, so we're going to do a few things surrounding Marcel Proust and the history of that timeline and a lot of medical topics within that. However, we're also in communication with Dr. Finley, who, as most of you probably know, has been very involved in the genetics area of UAB. And so he has expressed an interest in being involved in trying to put together a genetics display. So I think like we're always open to suggestions, to ideas. You can always contact our assistant dean, Jason Bird, if you just want to learn more, or if you have any thoughts about, hey, this could be really great. This could really bring people in and help them see kind of the depth of the collections. So we definitely love to hear from the community of things they'd like to see. And generally, as long as it's something, that's relevant, that we can actually pull materials and support, we're very much open to ideas that come to us. And we're always looking for new ideas. So we encourage anyone, if you would like to see something or if you have a specific interest, definitely you can contact our assistant dean, Jason Bird, for more information or just to start a conversation. So great question.
As a glimpse into that like process, what from start to finish does it usually take a year to have everything prepped? Is it an 18-month or does it go quicker?
It kind of depends. So for the gallery, we started in November going ahead and deciding what we will be putting in August of this year. And so basically what it will look like is we will have regular meetings. We will pick a topic, narrow that down, come up with very specific themes. And then, so right now we've just finalized the topic, the themes, and now we'll have like weekly meetings as a department to pull materials, select materials, figure out how those all kind of can create one cohesive exhibit. We'll start slowly writing captions for each and then writing all of the literature that we want to go with it. And it really can take, I mean, I think some exhibits can take a year. We do have smaller exhibits. So anyone who's visited the third floor, you can see that we have 3 display cases on each side. Something like that may only take a couple of months. So it really just depends on, is there an event we're doing? We have an exhibit case out in our foyer right now that I believe it's tomorrow. We're going to pull materials, and it's just one display case that will be relevant to the lecture on February 5th. So that's kind of a smaller exhibition and won't take as much time, but really it's kind of finding the time, like what events do we have coming up? What's our timeline, what's our time frame, and what can we put together. And then of course the larger the exhibit, the more time, the more communication. But yeah, I mean there's a lot that goes into it, and there's a lot of considerations that we have, so it really depends on the exhibit. And again, we try and provide as accurate and as interesting an exhibit as possible, so we always try to take time with it whenever possible. But certainly there have been times it's like, hey, we've got this next week, what can we pull together? And we have done that, but we try and block out time as necessary to get those things done in the best way possible.
That's great. It's just a peek into the life of a librarian.
It keeps it
Um,
interesting,
it does. So if anyone is interested in if they sorry, we have a helicopter passing. I don't know if that's coming through or not. If anyone was interested in donating items, let's say they have medical items or medical related books and they felt that they wanted to do a donation to the historical collections, how do they do that? Is there like can you walk us through like what that process looks like?
Sure, of course. So essentially what you can do is I would encourage you to go to our website and go to our contact page, and you can contact Jason Bird. I can provide his email as well. And he essentially what we do is he can put in touch us and you in touch with who that collection would be like best suited for. So for instance, we had someone reach out to us, and they had a sketch of a doctor at UAB, and that they were wanting to donate. And so they contacted the Reynolds Finley Library, but we spoke to Tim Pennycuff, the UAB archivist, and have determined that it's best suited for their collection. So there's a lot of collaboration that goes on. So really from the donor standpoint, really, if you can contact, I would suggest Jason, really anyone in our department can direct you to who you should be in touch with. If you're interested in donating books, that would be more for the Reynolds Finley Historical Library. Generally, we accept things, our date range generally cuts off around 1950, but we do make exceptions just due to spacing, as all of us have. That's always a challenge. But the UAB Archives actively takes donations regarding Birmingham history, UAB history, things like that. And then the museum, artifacts, surgery instruments, things like that. So, I mean, definitely be in contact with us, and then we can help put you in touch with who you need to discuss further to facilitate that donation in whatever way that needs to happen.
Okay, that's great information. On just like a quick personal, what's one of the most interesting things to you that you have that might be obscure to everyone else or maybe not be widely known? Is there anything that stands out as just like super interesting?
Yeah, I mean, we've got some really cool stuff. I mean, we have like a advertisement of Paul Revere's where apparently he did dental work on the side. Which I didn't know when I started working here, but he has a whole dental announcement promoting his practice. So we have that. We have three Washington letters. We have two by George, one by Martha, that talk about getting new false teeth. So they're talking to their dentist about getting plaster of Paris and how they can get new teeth. I think by the time he was president, George Washington only had one of his original teeth. So that was an ongoing thing. Yeah, I mean, we've got uh, Louis Pasteur manuscript material. We have a whole Middle Eastern medical collection from books about or manuscript material by Raziz, that talks about more of the Eastern approach to medicine. I mean, we've just got fascinating stuff. I mean, it's just depending on the day. We have a whole work that's a natural encyclopedia from 1497 that has this whole, it's got like over 1,000 hand painted woodcuts, and it has this whole section on mer people. It's got a mer knight, a mer monk, and it's just like all these different disciplines of mer people. And so we've got all kinds of things, some very visual, obviously all very historical. We have a lot of local stuff. We have a whole digital collection that I didn't have time to mention, but a whole rare Alabama medical journal collection that we're adding to. So we're adding the transactions of the Medical Association of the state of Alabama. We have the Southern Surgical Association notes. So it's really important for us to provide those local resources as well. So yeah, I mean, we've got some really interesting, really funny stuff. I came across a book on mistletoe for some reason the other day. We've got just, if you can think of it, there is probably going to be some mention of it or some connection to it. We have all kinds of stuff. We're hosting a witchcraft class in a few weeks. We've done a lot of monsters classes, mythical beast classes. So we really try and, in addition to the history of the health sciences, think outside the box. So, there's a lot of different things, but yeah, we do have some really cool stuff. And that's always a tough question because it really just depends on the day and kind of what we come across.
It's always been interesting to me how so many things, just historical in general and national, can end up in Birmingham and are right next door to our office. So, thank you so much for sharing with us today. This will kind of wrap us up for our lunch hour session. And I have plans on getting this recording uploaded, and I'll get with you, Anna, on getting the slides and sending it out to those that were registered. So you can rewatch the recording if you need to, and click through the slides and have access to all those links that she provided. That'll kind of wrap us up. So thank you so much.
Thank you as well.
Have a great day.